You're listening to David Hammond's Smelly Flowerpot on Cambridge 105 Radio, and I'm absolutely chuffed to bits to say that I've got Seymour Quigley on the line now to talk about his new venture, his single that he's done with a host of bands in the Bury St Edmunds area. So welcome to the show, Seymour.
Hello, Dave.
It's absolute delight to have you on the show again. It's I think it's a year or so since you were last on, isn't it?
I think it's longer than that. I think it was October 2018 the last time I came on.
Was it really?
Yeah, I tend to leave it far too long between projects these days, which is a shame because I love making records, but I just don't do it often enough.
Yeah.
So,
but having said that, you're a very busy man with what you do down at the washing machine, with your daytime job, and obviously family as well.
Yeah, I was actually in the middle of a teacher training year when lockdown started.
Yeah.
So we were given the option of passing without finishing, but that didn't sit right with me. So I'm gonna finish my course up in September.
All right. Okay.
Which means an extra long summer holiday with the kids. But
and talking of teaching, that sort of feeds in nicely with the single, which is coming out on Repeat Records, and of course Richard Rose himself is a teacher, isn't he?
Yeah, well, Rosie was always a hero of mine, and he was one of the people who took me seriously back when I was a mardy teenager and hated the world.
Right.
I think between him and a lady called Jackie Smith, who ran the Bury Sound Band competition, who started the Bury Sound Band competition, they were two of the first adults who kind of took me seriously in what I wanted to do. And it only takes a couple of important adults like that who can completely turn your life around. So I think Rosie from Repeat Records is very much responsible for me being a more sane and rational human being than I might otherwise have been, just from being a really good example. So maybe I did end up becoming a teacher because of him.
Yeah. And despite the fact that he's now over in Swansea, isn't he? He's living over in Swansea. He still has a big effect on the music scene in Bury St Edmunds and the Cambridge area. Still promotes a lot of bands, still gets involved with the things that are going on. Still a bit of a legend, really.
Yeah, he's kept. He's carried on doing things in Cambridge, even though he lives in Swansea. He's still got an office in Cambridge for Repeat Records.
Yeah,
and he's still helping to organise stuff in that city, even though he lives hundreds of miles away now. But he's just one of those people who can't be stopped.
Yeah, force of nature.
Yes. But it's nice because he's gone back to Swansea and done exactly the same stuff that he was doing in Cambridge in a very short amount of time. He's become a real force in the community there. And he's built, he's building this lovely community of bands who come together. And he's I'm sure you're going to ask me about the Bury St Edmunds record that we've made, but there is actually a Swansea equivalent which Richard got together when I put the idea to him. So he went and found a load of Swansea musicians who jumped on board and doing their own track, which is going to be coming out on the vinyl version of ours. And that's just the kind of guy he is. He will literally walk into a room and go, "Let's save the world," and everyone goes, "Yeah!" And that's the kind of guy he is.
Yeah. He's a Marvel comic hero, really.
Yes.
So anyway, we're here to talk about the single, which you're heavily involved in, which features a lot of bands from Bury St Edmunds, including Culk, B.U.H, Gaffer Tape Sandy, and Tundra. Give us a little bit of background as to how the song came about and how the rest of the bands got involved in it.
Well, the day after the election at Christmas, I woke up feeling really horribly embarrassed for our country because it had been such a nasty experience living through that election. And it was really, I think it really shamed us as a nation how nasty that election was. There were no positives that came out of it at all. And like a lot of people, I woke up feeling really despondent about the whole affair. But this song popped into my head, literally just as I was, getting up to make a cup of tea. I had this chorus, and I immediately thought, well, that sounds like a Tundra song. Then I thought it'd sound great if we had B.U.H singing on it as well, because I thought of Felicia's vocals especially. Yeah. And then I thought, well, maybe Gaffer Tape Sandy would be on it as well. And this idea came together while I was boiling the kettle. So I immediately contacted Richard Rosie from Repeat, and he said, yeah, I'll put it out. And then I got in touch with the producer, Jamie, and he said, yeah, I'll produce it. You can have free studio time. So then I got in touch with Tundra and the other bands, and they all said yes. And then Culk just invited themselves to the studio, which is
Right.
they're one of my absolute favourite bands. I love them, and they just turned up and said, "Can we be on the record, please?" So that's why they're on the record. So so it was one of those things of it all coming together really, really easily. Apart from the fact that we're now in a global pandemic, So aside from the global pandemic, absolutely everything went to plan.
Yeah. So this was all recorded well before the pandemic and the lockdown.
Yeah, well, a few weeks before, put it a month before the lockdown, we recorded it.
Yeah.
And we planned to put it out as a 7-inch single. We were going to do 2 gigs where all the bands got up on stage and played it live. And obviously that hasn't been able to happen, but we're still going. At some point, we will still do a launch party. The idea behind it was to raise money for Gatehouse Food Bank in Bury St Edmunds, but also encourage people to support their local food banks wherever they are. So we will still find a way to do that, and we've used the digital launch to try and promote the idea of supporting a local food bank, because unfortunately, at times like these, vulnerable people need more help than ever. The whole point for me of supporting Gatehouse Food Bank as well, because it is a song that's very critical of our government, is that Gatehouse is a charity that shouldn't exist.
Yes.
We should not have food banks in 21st century Britain. It's absurd and wrong.
Yeah, in what is the fifth richest nation in the world.
Yeah, there is no reason for us to have food banks, and the fact that they exist is abhorrent. I know that Gatehouse would agree with that. The whole point is that they shouldn't have to exist. But while they do, we must support them. And there are people involved in the Bury music scene, hardworking people with people who have jobs, who I know who have had to go to the food bank just because the cost of living massively outstrips what they earn. And that's a terrible state of affairs. We should not be in that position. And it's interesting that since the lockdown began, suddenly all this money has appeared. Homelessness in London has been ended overnight, and it was always possible to do that. We just chose not to as a society, and we put people in charge repeatedly who choose not to, because they don't care about ordinary people.
Yeah.
And so I mean, the positive of this pandemic, I hope, is that people will see that those years of austerity, the years of stamping on vulnerable people, as for sport, were not totally unnecessary.
Yeah, it didn't need to happen. Absolutely not. No.
So there's a positive that comes out of it. I hope that's what it is. I hope it changes our opinions on a lot of things now that we realise how that every life is important, and it's always been possible to support everybody. So and that any suggestion otherwise was a lie. An outright lie.
No, absolutely. Agree with you 100% there. And of course, although the song was written before and recorded before the coronavirus outbreak and the pandemic and what's going on in this country, it does kind of resonate with the way that the government's handled this as well to an extent. Yeah,
it's come out that they turned down 3 opportunities to join an EU procurement scheme that would have given them sufficient PPE and ventilators, purely so they could hand contracts to their mates who weren't necessarily providers of those things. I mean, there was a guy who runs a ventilator manufacturer yesterday who was saying that he had been ignored by the government when he went to them saying, I will give you what you need, tell me you need it and I will provide it to you. And then he got a call from Aston Martin, who'd been handed a contract by the government to produce this stuff that they don't produce. And now they are getting all these small companies on board. And it's obviously going to cost us more to have, There's
the extra man in the middle and his margin. It's probably a very healthy margin. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sure it is, but it is just, it's favours for mates at the expense of people's lives. And it's not a surprise because that is how corrupt people have always operated.
Yeah.
But to do it so flagrantly as people are dying demonstrates the contempt in which they hold ordinary people.
Well, to paraphrase somebody who was was probably held very dear by some people in the country and not so much by others. It's all about the collective wealth of the few rather than the collective health of the many.
Well, quite.
Yeah.
I know it's always been thus, but it doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
And this is the thing, we do tend to seem to choose serfdom year after, time after time, election after election. We like the bullies. We like being bullied. The fact that these people are able to talk down to us, we think means they're worthy of responsibility and power.
Mm.
But the bully should never be in charge of anything. So yeah, that's the again, that's one of the things that I hope this changes.
Yeah.
But we do like rolling over and taking a kicking. We think we deserve it. It's a really strange thing in the British psyche.
No, it is. It is. I agree. Just going back to the song, though, I mean, it does sort of throw me back to times, and I'm casting my mind back to the sort of early Thatcher years when there was quite a movement of musicians to create music that did sort of kick back against what was happening, which doesn't seem to be the case very often these days. I don't know if you would agree with that or not.
It hasn't been for a long time. Things might change now. And I hope they do. It did. Writing overtly political songs did fall out of favour. I mean, there came a real sea change in the noughties when the big music magazines stopped covering any politically charged music. It became very unfashionable. And there was a long period followed where music was extremely apolitical, or at least overground music was extremely apolitical. There's always been artists writing interesting stuff or writing polemical material, but they weren't necessarily outside of hip hop getting much coverage.
Yeah.
So hopefully things would go back in that. I mean, I don't know. It was really easy to write the song. I mean, I came up with the chorus, which is just one line repeated. But when I apart from B.U.H, who do write political lyrics, Gaffer Tape Sandy and Tundra don't necessarily do that. But they both just came up off the top of their head. I think Kim and Caitlin just literally, the first thing that came into their head, all the things they'd been feeling frustrated about, just came out. Kim said it was incredibly easy to write the lyrics for Gaffer Tape Sandy's verse. I watched Caitlin write the lyrics for Tundra's verse. It took about 5 minutes. It was really, so I don't know, maybe we'll see more outpourings when people realise, you don't have to dress it up. If you're really angry, just scream down a microphone, because it's valid. It was valid during punk, it was valid in the 80s, it was valid in the 90s, when you had bands on major labels doing extremely political material. And it's valid now. It's always valid to say how you feel. It doesn't matter how many people are listening. If people agree with you, they will find you and they will agree with you. The only way to find like-minded people is to scream into the void sometimes.
Yeah.
So yeah. I'm hoping this happens again. I really enjoy collaborating. It was an absolute dream playing with that bunch of musicians.
Well, that was one thing I was going to ask. Would this be a one-off, or would it be further collaborations with these people or with other people?
I think we all really enjoyed it, so I can see more collaborations happening.
Yeah.
I think I have got another song that I would quite like to do with Tundra. But Jamie, who produced it, sent me some stuff the other day. He's been working on with James from Sunscreen, and that I want to stick some guitars on. It's the time now is the time to collaborate.
Yeah.
We're all stuck in our bedrooms, but most people have a laptop, and you can make an album. You can make an album on an iPhone.
Yeah.
So I think now is the time for people to be pinging stuff around and cross pollinating. So it'd be interesting to see what music comes out of this.
Yeah.
Because it's better than sitting around being bored, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, personally, I've seen a surge of music over the last couple of weeks from artists that have sent me music. And a lot of it is themed towards, the pandemic and how people are dealing with it on a personal level, as well as the political side of things. And to me, that is just great to see that coming out, people being inspired enough to want to write songs about things like that, rather than the rather generic kind of stuff that falls our way day in, day out. It's nice to have a little bit of a sea change and a bit of a move to something that's a little bit more angry at times, I think, more than anything.
Yeah. I can't see people going happily back to the way things were before the pandemic.
Yeah,
and I hope that all that anger and frustration and that mismanagement and being lied to starts to spill out.
Yeah,
And I think it will, because this is, you know, it's a traumatic time for people.
Yeah.
And I hope the positive outcome is that people feel empowered to speak up and not take a kicking anymore.
Absolutely. I suppose the one thing that we haven't talked about is where people can get hold of this single, because it's on a vinyl release, but I think you can also get it as a download as well, can't you?
Yeah, it's so the vinyl isn't out yet because we don't know how long that's going to take to come back. So when it arrives, we'll put it on sale. People can pre-order the vinyl with a download from the Repeat Records Bandcamp. So that's repeatfanzine.bandcamp.com. But it's on Spotify and iTunes and all the rest of it at the minute. There's a video that Catherine from Gaffer Tape Sandy made, which is on YouTube, and eventually there will be a vinyl as and when.
And some brilliant artwork for it as well.
Yeah, well, we changed it last week because I'm not going to lie to you. The artwork, which is by Russell Taysom, he's a Cambridge artist who he started off doing flyers for Repeat gigs, and now he gets paid by massive artists. Like Idol's paid him to make a video. Craig Charles gets him to do flyers. NME pay him to do stuff as well. He's got a really unique style, and kind of reminds me of old classic Nickelodeon stuff like Ren and Stimpy. It's like he's got a great style, he agreed to do it for free, and it's a picture which pays testament to 10 years of Tory austerity, and features a zombie Boris Johnson feasting on the flesh of the poor. We did tone it down slightly. We basically changed Boris Johnson's hair last week for the initial version, because we didn't, he was in hospital, and we're not going to appear to be jeering at a man who's in hospital. But he's out of hospital now, and he's still the Prime Minister, and he deserves to be held to account, because his legacy is increasing xenophobia, racism, homophobia, general intolerance in this country, and being part of a government that spent 10 years stamping on the face of vulnerable people. So he's huge, and he's mismanaged this crisis. So I'm glad he's better, and now he needs to be held to account.
Absolutely.
We need to call him what he is, which is a murderous ding dong.
Yeah.
So
no, absolutely, Seymour. Very, very powerfully put, I think. So before we leave off, I'm going to play the single shortly. But before we do that, we're obviously on a video chat, and I can just see over your right shoulder a poster on the wall which says "Horse Party." It'd be a bit silly of me not to ask: is there going to be any further horse party?
Well, we've planned it. We keep chatting. The problem is that we all live in different parts of the country now, but we vowed at the start of the year to make some more music, and we are going to be doing a gig before the end of the year,
right? Which
means that we have to write some new stuff.
Right.
So it's there. We've committed to it. So but we keep chatting. The problem is that we're much better at being friends than we are at being a productive band.
Right.
I think well, there should be more stuff.
Well, that is good news, and we'll keep an eye out for that one anyway. So, but thank you very much for joining us, Seymour. Absolute pleasure. As always very lucid and entertaining, and always well worth a listen. So thank you very much for that.
Thanks, Dave.
All right, cheers.